we all appreciate the fact that hospitals exist, but they don't always do what they say they are going to do.
Yes.
So
Yes.
It's always a bit of a challenge and a bit of a risk. So yeah, you learn to expect problems, right? That's what happens.
Yes.
You learn to expect problems, and then try to deal with those problems. It's the healthcare industry is a very brutal
Yes.
environment. I mean, my partner almost died when she gave birth to our second child. It was very close. She was bleeding, and the bleeding didn't stop, and she needed an emergency operation. So the question of why there was this problem is a big question. Nobody has the answer, but everything suggests a mistake somewhere by somebody. And so we have to be very, very careful. Life is precious, and human beings are fragile.
Yeah.
We are all, very easily broken. I remember sitting in the hospital holding my daughter while my partner was rushed away to an emergency room for an emergency operation. And I was thinking, my daughter was like 2 or 3 hours old. And I was thinking, fuck, what now?
Yeah.
Right? What now? Oh my God. At which time, and I remember this very clearly, because at that moment I got a phone call from one of my students, and the student said, "I'm outside your office. We have a meeting. Where are you?" And I was thinking, shit, I forgot to cancel the meeting. Shit. And so I remember that clearly for the madness of everything happening at the same time. So we have to be careful, and the healthcare is an industry, and not everything is transparent and clear within that world. There's a lot of money that changes hands for a lot of different reasons. So in general, nurses and doctors do a very good job and a very difficult job. But they still need to be monitored and checked.
Yeah.
And everybody, I think, always needs a sort of plan B if something is maybe not going to work out. That's why all 3 of my children were born in different hospitals. I mean, that's kind of strange, right?
Yeah.
Because we lived in the same area, but all 3 of my children were born in different hospitals, because I was not satisfied with the first birth, so I changed to a different hospital for the second birth. I was not satisfied with the second birth.
But this is question because before birth you chose hospital, and everything happened in this hospital. As it's true.
Before, this is what a person should do. Okay, so I don't know. I've never heard about this. You have to choose a certain hospital before. I've never heard that. This is the first time I've heard that. So that might be a law in the Czech Republic. I don't know. It's definitely not a law in Slovakia, because the hospitals are obliged to provide a service to people when necessary. It's not the patient's fault that the hospital doesn't have enough beds. Okay, Basically, hospitals cannot refuse people. They can't.
Yes.
Basically, there's a. I'm not sure if it's a written law, but there's kind of a social law that doctors cannot refuse to operate on patients, right? Emergency rooms cannot refuse to give care to people who need it. So, it seems to me very strange that a hospital would say we're what. It's like the story of Jesus, right? Like the parents are knocking on doors saying, "Can we stay here?" And they're like, "No, we're full." It's like, what? What? Find another hospital. It's not that simple, right? That's like saying that it's just complicated, right? It's just really complicated to do that. So the idea that you have to make an application in writing is madness. What do hospitals do if there's too many people in the emergency room? Do they just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you just die"? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you can't ask someone to go somewhere else. So, I think you should visit the hospital and talk to the doctors and nurses before. I mean, that's what we did, and I tried to collect as much data and as much information as possible. And even though you do that, there's still no guarantee. Me being me always has a plan B, right? Just like, okay, if this doesn't work, we'll do that. But if you can't say no to a pregnant person who's going to give birth. You can't send her to another hospital if it's that time.
Yes.
You can't. You just can't. So, what are you supposed to do? Drive around to look for different hospitals? I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, it's like this. Yes, it's like this. Yeah, exactly. It was like this. And let's say the best clue was, better will be if you call emergency, and emergency will know where is free place for birth. And I say, oh my God.
Well, it's crazy because, I mean, the government's got lots of money to give immigrants free houses and help them find jobs, but they don't have enough beds for women to give birth. Yes. I mean, that's backwards, right? They've got social care and housing for children who've got no parents because the parents don't want to look after their own kids, but they don't have money to help the citizens of the country who are paying the taxes give birth to the next generation of taxpayers.
Yeah.
It's completely backwards, and leaning on the healthcare system is kind of tricky. It's what's that saying? Always paddle your own canoe. Do you know what I mean, right? Like, always paddle your own canoe.
Yeah.
Always make sure that you sort of know what's happening. Look, the number of doctors who have given my patients the wrong medication. I mean, it's huge. It's huge, right? I mean, everybody is so busy. It's all based on trust. The doctor does not know what is in the pill. They don't know. They don't know. It's based on a system of trust, and so it's hard. It's very hard, and giving birth is difficult enough. Why make it more stressful? I mean, that's just not an intelligent thing to do. There's a strong argument for home birth, right? There's a strong argument for giving birth at home, which is actually not legal in some countries. And when you realize it's not legal to have a natural birth, it's because it's a high risk. Well, shit, everything is risky. right? Going to a hospital is risky. I mean, hospitals are full of sick people, dead people, and diseased people, and and half dead people, and sleepy people, and lots of drugs, and there's a very non-personal relationship. I mean, the reason why hospitals exist actually is to clean up all the dead bodies in society. This is what nobody wants to talk about. It's nice to, have safe places and perform operations and etc. But there's a lot more to the situation than that. So it's hard. There's there's actually a good number of documentaries on children being born that are worth watching. I think the most well-known one is called The Business of Giving Birth. One second. The Business of Giving Birth. That's the one. Okay. That's the good one. There we go. So it looks at the positive and negative side, and it focuses on mothers who want to have their child born at home, and some of the benefits like that. Here's a small piece of logic which makes sense to you and me, but doctors don't understand. Okay, right. If a woman is giving birth, what is the most natural position for her to be in?
I think lie on the bed, on the back.
That's the worst position.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is something called gravity.
Yeah.
Gravity exists so that the birth process is more natural. The baby is supposed to come out naturally.
Yes.
Yeah. If a woman is on her back, then the gravity is pulling the baby back into her, not out.
Not out.
Not out. Now, please show me a hospital that uses this simple piece of logic.
I think doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Now, everybody knows this. Everybody understands this. But the hospitals have their regulations. And the regulations say that you have to tie a woman into a chair and, I don't know, do lots of other things and inject chemicals into her, blah, blah. Look, women all over the world give birth all of the time, right? And most of them do not need any special, chemicals involved in the process. Now, I'm not saying it's always a bad idea. I'm just saying that if we can keep things as natural as is possible, that's great. Now, obviously, if you do some scan of the baby and you find that the umbilical cord is tied the wrong way or the baby's coming out the wrong way, then you can work to correct that. It's hard. You know what it depends on? It depends on the individual nurses that are there at the birth. Because you can get nurses who are great and take great care of the patient.
Yes.
And you can get nurses who, they still think it's 150 years ago, and that birth is this brutal process of so there's a lot of things that are questionable in the process. So my I've seen babies born in 3 different hospitals now, and the environment is really important. It's in you need a space. You need like, in the Bistritza hospital. It was like a factory. Okay, it was absolutely terrible. It was like being in the processing room of some big factory somewhere. It was being like it was a nightmare. Whereas in Zvolen, it was like being in a children's playroom.
Mm-hmm.
There was soft music in the background, and the women were given lots of time and space, and there was like there was like a one of those fitness exercise balls that you could sit on, and that the nurses really took care, which is the opposite of what you expect. And then the middle child was born in Banska Štiavnica, which has a very good reputation as a hospital, but that's where my partner nearly died. So what you think is good, what people tell you is good, is often different from the real experience. And so my experience is what should be the worst was actually the best. And we're talking Zvolen, which had, the hospital was full of gypsies, and it shouldn't be that comfortable and nice, and it was actually quite good. But then it depends on the nurses that are there, because you need people who are caring and understanding, and who understand the whole nature of the process, not people who are screaming and shouting and full of stress and screaming push push push. That's ridiculous. That's completely unnecessary. Screaming at a woman who's giving birth and going through stress already is just backwards. It's like that's like screaming at the patient during the operation, right? I mean, it's just it makes no sense. So, as you can see, I have some experience with this subject and I have some opinions about it, but I don't talk about it a lot with people because I don't want other people to have more stress than is necessary. I can talk about it with you now because it's after, right?
Yeah.
Right. And the aftercare is just as important. The baby getting as much physical contact with the mother as possible is extremely important. Back in communism, like the fathers were not allowed to visit for the first 3 days or something like that. I mean that's madness. So the baby needs the biological link with both parents, which is what people forget when they look at things like it's okay to be a single parent. Don't worry. I mean the child needs 2 pillars, right? Through which to grow and understand things. Everything needs 2 sides. It's a natural part of life. The yin and the yang, the black and the white, the up and the down, the above and the below. Everything needs these 2 pillars. So this idea of what people call the single parent family, which is an oxymoron because family means 2 and single parent means 1. You can't have a single parent family. It's absolutely impossible. So children always need this dual support. Apart from the fact that bringing up a child is just a lot of fun and a lot of stress at the same time, and it's very exhausting for people. So you need as much support as possible, internally in the relationships and externally in the family as well. So